Hello, all. Thank you for taking the time here today. I want to take this time to introduce myself. My name is Eddie Gill with Wise Financial and Northwestern Mutual. It's my honor and my pleasure to be a part of this conference as a whole. I think InnoPower has done a tremendous job of providing resources and social capital for our community. I'm really excited today about this conversation I'm having with a great young man doing powerful things across all sectors of a number of different industries. I'll let him speak to that here in just a moment. Mr. Jesse Iwuji, I'll give a brief introduction. I really don't want to burn too much time. I want to dive back into it because he has a tremendously inspirational story and would love for everyone to really digest it and really just be inspired and uplifted as I am with his story. At a young age, Jesse grew up in Dallas, Texas. He's a Dallas, Texas native and Nigerian American. Jesse was interested and driven in the sporting world. Being from Texas, obviously football really dominates all, and he was fortunate enough to go on and have success and earn himself a 4-year Division 1A scholarship at the Naval Academy, in where he's an officer. Also had 2 deployments there, enjoyed a 4-year football career where he had high-level success there as well. Did graduate with a Bachelor's of Science and was commissioned as a service warfare officer in the U.S. Navy. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your service and thank you for being here today. Really happy that you can join us. He also developed a passion for speed, and he is now on the NASCAR track. I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that, and we'll just dive in.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on the show also and having me for this event. It's pretty awesome to see what everyone's doing, just really trying to, help elevate everyone's lives. So thank you so much for even having me. But my story's been definitely a different one for sure than most race car drivers. Like you mentioned, originally I'm from Dallas, Texas. I grew up there. Both of my parents immigrated from Nigeria to the U.S. back in the 80s before deciding to settle in Dallas and having me and my 2 brothers and my sister. And growing up in Texas, football is the biggest thing in that state. So I naturally gravitated towards that and eventually, worked very, very hard in middle school and high school to eventually put myself in a position to get recruited by some schools. And one of those schools that recruited me was the U.S. Naval Academy. And I looked at it as a great opportunity to go to a really good school, get a great education, play football for a team that was winning a lot of games, go Navy, beat Army. and then also when I graduate from the academy, be able to have a career pretty much started for me as an officer in the United States Navy. So I went to the school. Played football there from 2006 to 2010, beat Army all 4 times. So Victor out there, if you're seeing this, we beat Army all 4 times, beat Air Force all 4 times, beat Notre Dame twice, went to 4 bowl games. I graduated from the academy in 2010, became a surface warfare officer. I was on multiple ships for my first 4 years in the Navy, and I went on 2 different deployments between those ships, spent about 15 total months in the Arabian Gulf. And in between my underways and deployments, going out to sea, coming back home to San Diego at that time, I was starting to develop this passion for cars and racing. And I would take my personal cars to local tracks near me on the weekends that I was off. And I would go to these track days and these time trial events and all this stuff. And after a few years of that, finally in 2014, I was sitting in my room one night and I pulled my whiteboard off my wall and I had some goals and things written on it and I just erased everything. And I was sitting there one night and I just kept on having this vision, clearly seeing myself become a professional race car driver because I liked cars and I liked racing. And I just made the decision, I'm going to go after this goal. I'm going to become a professional race car driver. So I wrote that big goal on my whiteboard and I put it back up on my wall. And in January 2014, that is when this journey began. And at that point, I had to figure out, how do I even make this happen? I go on the internet, I start researching, trying to figure out, how do I even get into racing? Everything I looked at, people were saying, you can't get into it because you don't come from a wealthy background. You don't come from a racing family. You don't have the racing connections. You didn't start racing when you're 5-6 years old. You're African American. There's no African Americans racing. All this stuff was what was basically getting thrown at me. And I was like, I'm not going to believe any of this. Like, this is not going to define the outcome of my life. Like, if I want to become a pro driver, I'm going to become a pro driver. I see it clearly. God put the vision in my head that I was going to accomplish this no matter what. How I was going to get there, I don't know, but I was going to figure it out. When I went to the Naval Academy, they taught us to be resourceful. And those skills was what I was going to use to get myself to that level. So over the next few years, I grinded and grinded and grinded to figure out a way to find the funding. How do I find the funding if I didn't have any sponsors at that time? Well, I started my own small business to make extra money on the side while still serving in the Navy. I did all this stuff just to get into a race car. I jumped on a simulator, taught myself how to drive a real life race car on a simulator at home for months on end. I used this to get in a race car. Finally got in one in 2015. Started working my way up the ranks of NASCAR, and now I'm racing at the national level of NASCAR, being one of 2 African Americans right now racing at the top 3 series of NASCAR. And to do it while also still serving, because I'm still in the Navy right now. I'm just not active duty anymore. I'm in the reserves, but I'm the only service member who's currently serving and racing in the national series of NASCAR. It's been a huge blessing. It's been an honor to be able to represent our fighting forces, represent all of those out there who have a dream to go after bigger goals and where they're at in life. That's what this platform has been about. That's what this journey has been about. And I've been able to use it to inspire a lot. And hopefully we can continue to build this platform and give opportunities to people so they can go after their goals and dreams wherever it is in life.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. There's a lot there to kind of dive into in terms of how you've gotten to this place and pursued your passion to be a NASCAR driver and really climb the ladder there. I want to go back a little bit, to you first coming out of the Naval Academy and in NASCAR just being somewhat of a dream and somewhat of an idea for you. You mentioned, erasing those other goals down and say, hey, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to go about doing that. It triggered something in my mind, and that's just the risk reward factor, right? A lot of times us as individuals, we get comfortable in a certain place, but we absolutely have a passion somewhere else that we want to chase down, but we don't want to just step out of that comfort box because there's some risk associated with that. What if you fail? What if it doesn't work out for you? Then what? How did you struggle with that? Or was there even an internal struggle as you weighed, those factors in terms of your professional career that you had currently started and what it would take to get to being a NASCAR driver?
There is always going to be struggles in any journey that you're going through in life. There's always going to be struggles. There's always going to be pitfalls. There's always going to be things you can trip over, people trying to pull you down, stop you, slow you down. All that stuff is going to happen throughout the journey. But that part of the journey is a part of the journey when you're going after a goal that I call the tunnel. The dark tunnel. So anytime we're ever going after a goal, initially in the beginning, we have a clear vision and we see where we're supposed to be, who we're supposed to become, what we're supposed to do. And then after that, the next step is, daily actionable steps every single day to grind towards this goal. But while you're doing that, you're going through this place I call the dark tunnel. And the reason why I call it the dark tunnel is because as you enter it, this is that whole journey. This is a path towards success. As you enter it, it's going to be pitch black. And I know the cliche thing to say is, oh yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The thing is that light is completely not visible at all. It's pitch black the entire way, all the way. Even when you're an inch away from the end of the tunnel, you actually still cannot see the light. And that's what happens is a lot of people are in this tunnel. They're taking these risks. Things are happening and they don't see the light at all. And what happens is people turn back around and go back because they know there was light in the beginning because they came from that. They're like, I'm gonna go back to the safe, secure place. And that's what you cannot do. You have to continue to push forward because even in the darkest point of the night, the sun will still rise. You're going to go through things. Things are going to happen. But all the setbacks that happen along the journey, these are all setups for phenomenal comebacks. So you have to smile when something bad happens through your journey. And maybe it's multiple things. Maybe it's over a whole year. Maybe it's over 10 years. I don't know what it is. If you clearly saw the vision of where you're supposed to be, which is what I did, I clearly saw myself becoming a NASCAR driver. The deal was already done in the future. Why would I quit anywhere in that tunnel, no matter what happened? It doesn't matter if someone took everything from me. It doesn't matter if I got robbed. It doesn't matter if I got screwed over. It doesn't matter if I got injured. It doesn't matter what happened. The deal was already done. So why would I quit as pitch black as it is in this tunnel? So you got to keep pushing forward, and life does reward those who stay strong enough, long enough.
Yeah, no, that's great. You mentioned one other thing that, again, the adversity there that was there in terms of what the financial struggle was. Because with NASCAR, you do have to do quite a bit of fundraising, as you mentioned, to just try to get a car on the track. Speak to that a little bit, and all the while running your own personal business to get this done.
Yeah, so a big part of racing in general, just not NASCAR, but just racing in general, is the funding side of it. Race cars fuel people, transportation, travel, all that stuff costs money. If you get in a wreck, because wrecks happen when you're all competing to win a race, people will do things, and maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but things happen and it all costs money. So there has to be some way to cover this cost. So you need the funding to make it happen. Sometimes the race teams already have it because maybe the team owner, owns some big corporation and just has the money and it's just a write-off and it's whatever. But sometimes that team owner doesn't have all that and they just need to find some other way of bringing in that money. So typically they'll look at the driver and say, hey, driver, you're the marketing asset. Maybe you can find a sponsor who can utilize you, your story, or whatever you're about as a marketing tool for whatever marketing campaigns they have. And maybe they'll sponsor you and then you can jump into the race car. So, sponsorship is a big part of it. And I've been able to attract different brands over the last 5-6 years now who have jumped on board as partners for, X amount of races or, for other marketing campaigns. And that's been super helpful. But in the beginning of the journey, I didn't have those sponsors. Nobody believed in me because they just thought this was just some random dream of some Navy guy trying to become a professional race car driver racing on TV. They didn't think it was possible because they didn't see the vision. I was given the vision. So I had to figure out how to support myself through it. So what I did was I put my entrepreneurial hat on, even though I had never started a business before, even though I didn't have any business degree or whatever you want to call it. It didn't matter. I had to figure out how to make this happen. So what I knew was I had a little bit of skills in social media marketing. So I figured, hey, I like racing. I'm trying to get into racing. I used to do a lot of drag racing stuff at the drag strip. Why don't I put on my own drag racing events? And when I host these events, I can invite a lot of people to the track. They can race their cars. I can have spectators watching them because they like to watch this stuff. And maybe if there's a profit at the end of it, I can use some of this money to turn back over towards my racing stuff and get into a race car. And that's what I did. The first event I had maybe had 300 or so people show up. The second event had over 2,000 people show up. I think by my fourth event, we were sitting at 4,000 people at the event. We've had upwards of 7,000 people come to the event since then. I keep putting these events on pretty much 3-4 times a year. And since then, learning how to get that business going, learning how to market it well, learning people, learning sales, learning all that stuff through this entrepreneurial journey has allowed me to start some other businesses. Now I also have a trucking company. We have semi trucks on the road right now as we speak, hauling goods. We also have a real estate investing company, investing in different real estate properties. And then also now a sim racing events company where we're hosting sim racing events through E-Racing Association. And we've been putting on these big events the last 6 months now, giving away cash prizes to all the people who compete at the events, and also giving people the opportunity to compete, in broadcasts, being streamed where, over 100,000 people are watching these broadcasts. So it's a pretty cool thing that we've been able to put together. But all this stuff is kind of stemmed from the initial entrepreneurial journey that I jumped into to help get myself into racing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Real quick, can you just touch on briefly what sim racing is to just make sure our viewers are understanding we know exactly what that's about?
Yeah, so sim racing is the esports side of racing. So, some people are able to find their way into a real life race car. Some people are not. Maybe they didn't figure out the funding side of it. Maybe they just don't have the time, whatever it is. So sim racing, you can, at your house, you can have a steering wheel, a cockpit that you're sitting in, shifter, pedals, a screen, computer, all that stuff, and you can get onto this software called iRacing, and you can use iRacing to race people all over the world, different tracks, and the dynamics of it, of the actual sim race are very, very similar to real life. So it's so close that real life race car drivers like myself and other drivers I compete against use iRacing to train on. So what we did with E-Racing Association is we created these events where people around the world could compete against each other at these tracks and have the opportunity to win cash prizes. So the winner of our last event basically walked home with $4,000. And when I say walked home, ran the race at home and won $4,000 at home, and now has his $4,000 more wealthy. So we are doing these events. It's been pretty fun. A lot of people are enjoying it. We're growing our user base. A lot of people are becoming members now in the E-Racing Association, and we plan on continuing to expand it and eventually, get into some other different racing series and stuff that we can do in the sim racing world.
No, that's fantastic. You mentioned obviously getting into NASCAR. You have these different business ventures. You've clearly developed a discipline along the way to put yourself in these positions to have this type of success and these types of opportunities. What do you say to the people out there that are looking to put themselves in position to have some opportunities to be successful, to chase down their passion, but specifically in the African American community, the Black and Brown community, that maybe some of the access, some of the privilege, some of those resources are just not there. And maybe I didn't go to the U.S. Naval Academy, right? So, maybe there's a network there. Maybe I didn't, for me personally, I played 12 years professional basketball and have some network there in which I can kind of lean upon. But maybe I'm not afforded those different privileges or opportunities. What do you say to those individuals in terms of how they can get themselves some access or education to really chase down their passion?
We probably would need an hour for me to go through all the different things, but yeah. I'll keep it somewhat simple. So you mentioned, maybe they weren't afforded this opportunity. At the end of the day, me and you, we weren't just given these opportunities. You didn't just pop out of the womb and all of a sudden somebody gave you an NBA contract. I didn't just, growing up in Dallas, all of a sudden someone walked up and was like, hey, I'm just going to make this happen for you, because you didn't do anything for it. We all worked hard. We all did things. We all had a clear vision, seeing what the goal was. And once again, we put daily actionable steps towards this goal every single day. And that's why we accomplished it. Nothing was given to us. So anyone going after their goals and dreams, just understand not a single thing will be given to you. There might be some points during that journey where it feels like something just got given to you, but it wasn't. It's because you were putting those daily actionable steps towards it every day. You put that focus energy towards it every single day. You're trying to be creative, trying to be innovative. You're trying to network. When I got myself in a race car, no one just walked up and said, hey, you're going to be in a race car. The reason why I even got that opportunity was because I took the time out of my day to go to an event where I purposely intended on going to network with people. Because I put that energy towards it, because I had that intention, I networked with everyone I could. And I just so happened to run into someone who gave me the opportunity to test a race car. It would have never happened if I didn't go try to network. No one was going to come to my home to give me that opportunity. What you think about, you bring about. So the more you continue to keep it in your head, you continue to push forward and continue to focus on a particular goal and actually do things towards it, because it's not just keeping in your head here, but it's doing things towards it. All these opportunities will start coming into your life. And I know it's hard for some people to believe. They think it's like, hocus pocus magic or whatever. It's not. It's all about the law of attraction. We attract into our lives what we think about. So what you think about, you bring about. So whatever your goal is, you got to continue to focus on it. You got to continue to push for it every day, research on it, network with people, get on LinkedIn, get on social media, whatever you got to do, you got to continue to put that energy towards it. That's how we attract things into our lives. That's how you attracted the NBA into your life. That's how I attracted NASCAR into my life. All this stuff was because we put that focused energy and that it had daily executable steps towards this, and that's what allowed us to do it.
No, I totally agree. Touch on one other thing in terms of being African American. You said one of two in NASCAR. Touch on what that's like to just be in that environment. Whether it's whatever obstacles may be there, how do you persevere through those obstacles? Those obviously are out there in the corporate world as well, not only for minorities but also for women not getting the same opportunities or equal opportunities. How do you really persevere through those certain instances?
Yeah, so right now in NASCAR, there's only two African Americans who are racing in the top 3 levels in the national series, me and Bubba Wallace. Some people will ask, hey, why is it only y'all two? Is NASCAR racist or something like that? I'm like, no, it's not. There's no law, there's no rule in NASCAR that says if you're Black or if you're Asian or if you're Mexican or if you're a female or whatever, that you're not allowed to race. There is no rules. We're all allowed to. I mean, there's Black people racing in NASCAR in the 50s. And we all know how the 50s were. So, we're all allowed to do it. The reason why you don't see a lot of minorities racing in NASCAR is because that initial barrier of entry. So if I'm an African-American kid, and I'm sitting in my neighborhood, I'm 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I'm looking at what I want to do in life and I'm really into sports, well, I could go to the store and get a football for $20, come back home, throw it around, learn how to catch or throw or run with it, do whatever, get better at football, and eventually kind of work my way into college and maybe the NFL one day, right? For racing, I can't just go to the store and buy a race car. It's going to be expensive. Even if I go on Craigslist, Facebook, wherever, try to find a used one and get it, I'm going to be into a go-kart, at least $800 to $1,500. So it's a lot of money that maybe sometimes these minorities from these underprivileged areas might not have. They just don't have that money. Parents are working, a lot of jobs just to make ends meet. They don't have the extra money to get go-karts and all that stuff. So then you got to look at the other way of, okay, how do I get into racing if I maybe don't have the money right now? Well, like I mentioned before, the sim racing part of it. A lot of people, even though they might not come from the greatest areas, a lot of people still have PlayStations. A lot of people still have Xboxes. A lot of people still have computers, laptops, and all that stuff. You can still use those things to get into the sim racing world, learn how to drive a race car virtually, and then eventually figure out a way for you to put yourself in a position where you can make the income necessary to now get yourself into a real life race car. And that's all about just being ingenuitive. Like, you got to use your head, you got to use your mind. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't get a business degree to figure out how to start a business. I had no business knowledge or anything like that. All I knew was I knew how people's minds worked. So I figured I can get people to come to events. And if they come to the events and I charge X amount of money and I make sure that the money I'm charging is more than what my expenses are, I'll have money left over, which is called profit. And I just use that to get myself in a race car. It's not complicated. It's just if you're willing to put the energy towards it. And at the end of the day, we all have the internet. For the most part, everyone has the internet. I'm a firm believer on YouTube University. It can teach you a lot.
No, that's good stuff. No, I totally agree. And, what I'm hearing is just going out there and especially put yourself in some of these uncomfortable situations, get out of that space of being content and really be able to have some of those uncomfortable conversations that you're not necessarily used to as you're talking to different people with regard to networking. You clearly have done a good job of that, an outstanding job of that. And clearly have a long ways to go. You mentioned earlier about the fundraising that's necessary to be in NASCAR, and you've done a nice job with your own personal business ventures and funding your own operation. But as the viewers are listening and if people want to reach out and maybe be a resource for you and what you do, we want to make sure that they're able to get a hold of you or connect with you. What's the best way to do that, or how would you see the most fitting there?
Yeah. So for anyone listening, viewing, if you ever want to reach out, I'm not one of those celebs or whatever you want to call it that doesn't answer in their DMs or anything like that. If you shoot me a message on any of the social media platforms, whether it's, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all that stuff, I check all my messages. I typically answer all of them as long as it's a meaningful message. I answer all of them. So if anyone's reaching out for any kind of help, it doesn't have to be that you're trying to get into racing. I have a lot of other things going on too. I'm in the business world. I'm racing. I'm in the military. I do a lot of other stuff too. So if you have any questions in general, and just you feel like I could potentially help you or guide you, reach out. I answer my messages, and if I don't get back to you in like a day or two, give me some time because I get hundreds of these messages. So reach out to me on any of those platforms. Just type in my name, Jesse Iwuji. That's JESSE IWUJI. And if you can't remember how to spell that, go on Google, type in Navy NASCAR driver. I should be the only one that pops up for like 2 or 3 pages.
That's big time. No, I really appreciate you taking the time here today. Wish we had more time. As you mentioned earlier, your story is inspirational and powerful. I commend all the things that you have done up to this point. I know you got a long runway ahead of you. I want to thank InnoPower, Wise Financial, Northwestern Mutual for being a part of this. It's been an honor myself to be a part of it, and keep pushing. I love what you're doing out there. Thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you so much. And for everyone listening, just one more piece of advice. Just remember, life rewards those who stay strong enough, long enough. Remember that.